Okay guys, this is the RB Focus Gaius S2, and this is a Windows-based control center for your astrophotography rig to completely automate it. And if you know me, and you know the name of my channel, I'm lazy. I'm a lazy astrophotographer, which sounds a bit contradictory, but it isn't when you realize that lazy means that I like to be efficient and to automate stuff as much as possible. And that's why, to me, I'll be reviewing various control centers for astrophotography. I've reviewed and really like things like the ZW Air or the cameras, the smart cameras that have the SIR integrated. I've reviewed and liked the StellarMate Pro. I've reviewed and liked the Toptech Stella Vita control center. I like all of those things, but if you watch the channel, you'll notice that after I've really liked those things, I tend to always gravitate back to Windows-based solutions, and usually I tend to use this little Milliquieter 4C. This is not an astrophotography mini PC. It's a general mini PC available on Amazon. It's around $200 US, and that's what I typically recommend. You get two USB 3 ports, one USB 2 port, and then you have a USB C port as well available to control all of your equipment. And it's really small, light, it's easy to put on your equipment, but it does not have any dedicated features for astrophotography. And it also has a power input of 12 volts that is a USB-C format, which is a bit annoying because you need to find an adapter, and most of the adapters, they say they're only valid up to 5 volts, and then I personally ignore that, and it just works fine with still 12 volts, but that's just me. So yeah, that's usually my recommendation, but this really changes everything. You may recall that on the channel I have reviewed in the past this as well, the Astro PC Pro, which is also a mini PC with just the same USB ports, except that now we have 3 USB 3 and 1 USB-C port. But it also had included within it a DC input with 4 DC outputs. But inside, it's just like, a standard splitter cable, effectively. So it's not like you can control each of these individual 12-volt ports. Although one of the good things it had as well was that it's broken now because my telescope cover in very strong wind actually ripped off the antennas, but it had some nice Wi-Fi antennas that were good for, being able to connect to it via remote desktop remotely. But now this comes along. And if you've ever been in the market for a Windows PC for astrophotography, specifically for astrophotography, really the only one that I've been aware of up to now that is fully controllable and that can do all sorts of wonderful things, like control your DC output for your dew heaters, turn on and off your other DC ports, has millions of USB ports, etc., etc., it's the EAGLE6 from Prima Luce, or the EAGLE5 at the time. And for a long time, I had considered buying one of those PCs. And those PCs, they're big. They're red and beautiful, but they're big, and they're heavy, and they're kind of low spec, and they're very expensive. So the EAGLE6, for instance, the base model from Prima Luce Lab is, I think, 1,000 euro, maybe even a bit more than that, maybe 1,100 euro. I don't remember exactly. It has a Celeron J type processor, which is not great, and it weighs 1.1 kilograms, which to me sounds a lot. And then I discovered this. So again, this is the RB Focus Gaius S2. If the RB Focus name rings a bell, it might be because I've featured their flat panel here on the channel before. This is a robotized flat panel, and it's completely changed the way I deal with my rig. Now, I don't want to use any other rig than this because I can automate everything with this and with that. And let me go into a bit more detail. What do we have here? We have, as I mentioned, a Windows PC, and there are 3 declinations. You have one with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage on board. You have one with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, and that's the one I would recommend. And you have this model, which is the top end, with 16 gigs of RAM and with 256 gigs of storage. Then you have a DC input here, which is XT30 standard, that supports an input of up to 12 volt 10 amps, and it uses that to provide output to those 5 DC ports that are well, up to 12 volts, 10 amps, and they are fully controllable in that I can switch them on and off from an application that's pre-installed on the PC, and also from an ASCOM driver, so from my control application like N.I.N.A, which I love, and it's the reason why I keep gravitating back to Windows PC. It's because of N.I.N.A and how insanely customizable N.I.N.A is, and how I can just, open up N.I.N.A and click the play button to start a session, and then I'll be able to just relax. And on top of that, we have two additional power output ports that are even more controllable, and that you can select the intensity of the power output. This is good for dew heaters. On top of that, it comes with a temperature and humidity sensor that you can put on this little tiny port here. And with that, it can actually automatically control the power output to those two ports so that you don't need to care about, babysitting your dew heaters. The whole thing does it automatically. On top of that, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 USB 2 ports and 2 USB 3 ports. So you kind of get like everything you need in this small box, which is, I think, 250 grams heavy. And I've added this 3D printed mount that came with this mini PC so that I can put it on my Finder shoe, on my telescope, and just like insert it there, and it can control everything. It's absolutely great. And I'll show you a bit later in the video how it works in Windows and how I've set it up with N.I.N.A. One of the prominent features on this, by the way, is the Wi-Fi antenna, and I'm happy to report that this Wi-Fi antenna is not for show. It is probably the control center with the strongest hotspot I've ever used. Maybe the StellarMate Pro comes close, but otherwise this thing there, the hotspot, was like perfect quality all the way 3 floors below, which I've never seen before. And what's more, even though it is a Windows-based PC, the hotspot works flawlessly, even if you go in the middle of nowhere where you don't have any network reception or anything like that. So the way that it works is that, just like the SI Air, you boot it up, and there is some custom software built by RB Focus that will start a Windows Wi-Fi hotspot, and you'll just be able to connect to it from your tablet, from your computer, or from your smartphone, and then you can use remote desktop, just a simple remote desktop provided with Windows, to just connect to that and use it. And it is a thing of beauty because everything just worked out of the box. You know how much I have struggled to make a proper Wi-Fi hotspot work with this Milliquider 4C, which, as I was mentioning, was my usual recommendation. With this, the problem does not exist. We also have another little feature there. There's a micro SD card reader and writer in there. So if you don't have enough storage for your Astro images, you can just basically put an SD card in there and then save your images to that. And we also have a tiny little screen there. This little rectangle window is actually a screen that gives you the status of this mini PC to tell you what's going on, including whether the hotspot has been started, etc. So it's all really nice little package, 250 grams, much smaller and lighter than the EAGLE6. And the processor in there is not great. It's a Celeron N5105, which is basically on the same level as the Astro PC Pro, but less powerful than the N100 that's in the Milliquider 4C. So it's decent, it works fine. I've tested it with the IMX571 sensor. There was no issue. I would say it's on the same level as well as something like the Milliquider 3C, which is plenty good for us. It is actually more powerful than the CPU that is included in the EAGLE6, which is a J series CPU. And the cost of it for the base model of RAM or memory of 4 gigs plus hard disk space of 64 gigs, it's 430 euros compared to 1,000 euros for the EAGLE6. And you see that I'm like, this is a good alternative to the EAGLE6, except that in 2025, no computer should ever be sold with just 4 gigs of RAM. Seriously, I would never recommend the base model of the Gaius S2 simply because 4 gigs, it's not enough. It's simply not enough to be somewhat future-proof. And when you have something that's well integrated like that, you really want to start with something that you know you'll be able to use for a long time. So the base model, unfortunately, a bit like a lot of Apple products, it's not something that I would ever recommend. I would recommend instead going for the 8 gigs / 128 gigs of storage version, which is more expensive at 565 euros right now. But it's still much cheaper than the EAGLE6. And the EAGLE6, the base version, also comes with the same 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. You can also use the SD card reader to add basically more capacity. And it should be possible, it is possible, I haven't done it, but it is possible to open it, and there should be a free N.2 slot in there if you want to add yet another drive in there. In fact, it's an option when you customize to buy this mini PC. So by the way, I'll have all of the links down in the description. And so how do you use that? Because I know there's a lot of people that simply love the SI Air because it just works. And it is true that if you go for something like a Windows PC, you'll likely be using the free and open source software called N.I.N.A, and there is a steeper learning curve than there is with the ASI Air. That said, this makes it slightly easier. First, I've noticed that the Windows installation itself is pre-configured to use less power. So like the fonts, there's no clear type on them. They're like, they kind of look rough around the edges. This is for performance reasons. All of the animations that Windows typically has, they're turned off. We don't need those, that kind of stuff. So it is pre-built to be as powerful as possible based on its limited CPU. That's one good thing. But also, it has tons of software pre-installed, including ASCOM, a ton of ASCOM drivers, and N.I.N.A as well. So the day I got it, I basically was able to connect it and control all of my equipment with maybe 5 minutes of setup time on my side. But remember, I'm kind of a professional. I've helped develop N.I.N.A. I've contributed code to N.I.N.A. So it's like I'm not like your standard user, let's say I would say, of Windows PCs for astrophotography. But still, it was impressive that everything was available, which also has its downside. You should not forget to update all of that stuff. So since I'm using it with here the QHY Minicam 8, I needed to install the latest QHY drivers. There were, I believe, QHY drivers pre-installed, if I recall properly, but I had to update them so that it could support the Minicam 8. Oh, and by the way, if you're thinking about like the top-end version to be as future-proof as possible, where you get your 16 gigs of RAM with 256 gigs of internal storage, that is 665 euros. So it starts to get really expensive, especially when you consider that for 200 bucks, the Mill Equator 4C can have basically the same 16 gigs and I think actually 512 gigs of storage. So it is something to remember that as good as the Gaius S2 is, and as much as I recommend it, you can kind of build your own thing by buying a Mill Equator 4C and then also buying something like a Pegasus Astro power box on top. And it might actually be slightly cheaper, but simply not as well integrated, and you don't have the proper Wi-Fi hotspot, etc. Whereas with this, everything is pre-installed and basically ready to use. The hotspot is configured, and it comes with a little sticker that has the hotspot information on it. So you just connect to it, and it's done. It's actually quite impressive. One thing that I wish it came with, by the way, is some sort of like this is using an XT30 standard, and it's hard for me to find such cables. Whereas when I got the StellarMate Pro here, which uses the similar XT60, it's basically XT30 but slightly larger, it came with this kind of adapter there, just like a 12 volt DC kind of standard, I think 2.5 or 2.1 center millimeter thing, and then you could just plug that in and then plug in your standard battery, or whatever, so you could use the control center as is. And it would be nice if RB Astro could manage to provide this kind of adapter for XT30. They did provide a power brick, which is nice for plugging into the wall, but also a power brick cable from the brick to there. The cable is a bit short. So I actually ended up using an XT60 extender that I already had together with an XT60 to 30 adapter. That way I had like the perfect setup like that. Okay, and with that, let me go inside and show you exactly how the software works, and most importantly, how you're able to control the ports there, the DC ports, the outputs, everything from this tiny PC, so that you can have everything integrated in N.I.N.A. I mean, this is honestly, for me, it's a dream, because now when I wake up, I have the flats taken, I have the darks, or the bias taken if I need some more. It's all automated via N.I.N.A. I have the DC output to my Minicam 8 here turned off, because otherwise the fan would be spinning, and so I don't have that. The camera is off. And everything is back home. And that's it. There's nothing to do. It's absolutely amazing. So let's go inside and see exactly how it looks like. And by the way, before we do that, if you want to support the channel, you can like the video. It really helps the channel out. And let me know down in the comments if you would be interested in buying something like that, whether you would recommend the EAGLE6 or something else instead. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're wondering about which control center you should buy for astrophotography, I recommend looking at other people's comments, because there's a lot of really interesting opinions in there, and I don't have like the best opinion all the time, right? So always good to check in the comments. While you're going there, you may consider subscribing if you're new to the channel, and if you want to support me at no cost to you and you're planning on buying anything from Amazon, N.I.N.A, High Point Scientific, etc., except that this is not available from any of those vendors, but I'll have the link down below anyway. But if you buy from Amazon, N.I.N.A, etc., if you do so after clicking one of the links I have down in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. And if you want to help me even more and become a sponsor, a direct sponsor of this channel, you can become a channel member. This is the join button next to the subscribe button. Or you can join my Patreon as a Patreon supporter. The link is down in the description, and some of my Patreon supporters have access to my videos early and without ads. Anyway, with that, let's get inside and see how this all works. Okay, we're inside and we're ready to control the RB Focus Gaius S2 computer. And this is like pretty much any other Windows PC that you used for astrophotography, so you can control it via remote desktop, or more recently via the web app / smartphone app called Touch and Stars that I've featured on the channel. I'll have the link to the description to the video up above, but also down in the description, because it's really amazing what we can do now with Windows PCs and N.I.N.A installed on them. But anyway, the first step would be to connect to the hotspot of the RB Focus Gaius S2 computer, which it comes with that little sticker with the hotspot information. So you connect to it from your PC. For me, I've already set it up in station mode, so it connects to my home Wi-Fi and generates the hotspot if it's outside of range of my home Wi-Fi. So for now, I just have my own PC connected to home Wi-Fi, and then I can just launch the remote desktop application. So just search for remote, here it is, and then I can input the authentication parameters that are provided with the PC. It's already done by default, so there's no setup you need to do on your side. And once I validate, I will be connected to the PC. Here we go. And it has, you can see some of the software that is pre-installed. There's like the N.I.N.A software, Polemaster, SharpCap, Stellarium, some stuff like that, Astro as well, if I remember correctly. Although I might have been the one installing it, I don't remember exactly. But this is standard Windows desktop. It definitely came with PhD 2 pre-installed for guiding. And let me show you quickly first the RB Focus power panel, because this is where, once I click on connect, you're able to control everything on your little Gaius S2 computer. And we have, after connecting to it, those two windows here, where you can see the status of the output, 12-volt outputs ports, and you can see the first one is off, because I don't want the Minicam 8 to have its fan turned on all of the time, but I'll just turn it on so I can connect to the Minicam 8 from N.I.N.A. That's the 5 power ports. And then we have the dew heater power ports, where you can set the percentage of the power port manually, or as I have them here, keep them on auto, where it computes the dew point and will adjust the power on those power outputs automatically. You can see also the humidity, temperature, voltage, amperage, all of this kind of cool information directly in there. So that's like the main kind of interface to control the integrated ports of the Gaius S2 computer. But you can also, as I mentioned, control it from ASCOM. So let me open up N.I.N.A. And what's going to be interesting is the switch there. This is where I can connect to, using the pre-installed ASCOM switch driver, to the RB Focus power controller. I can just connect to it, and there you go. Within N.I.N.A, I have access to all of those parameters, and because it's within N.I.N.A, I'll also have access to them directly within a sequence. So let me connect all of the equipment. I'm using the Minicam 8. I'm using a Gemini focuser on my Newtonian telescope. I'm using my Warp Astron WD-20 mount. Then I can also control the flat panel, and then connect to PhD2, which will control both the mount and the ASI 220mm mini camera that I have there. So now everything is connected and ready to go. And what's really, the usual stuff to me is that means I can completely automate absolutely everything. So if I go into my sequencer and I open the advanced sequencer, open up the latest target that I have, which was M51, you'll see how I have set up my sequences. And you can see I have at the very start, I'm going to cool my camera, unpark the scope, open the flat panel cover, switch the filter. But I could do something more. I could just search for switch in the options there. And before any of that happens, I could say like, okay, the first output 12-volt ports, set it to 1 to turn on the camera. Then maybe I can wait 5 seconds, or let's say give it 10 seconds. So wait for time, something like, okay, let's wait 15 seconds after that to allow the QHY camera to kind of wake up. And then using one of the N.I.N.A plugins, I can say connect equipment, and we'll connect the camera. That kind of stuff. So I can be completely automated without even having to do anything with the equipment. I could also just have in my sequencer, like, connect all equipment, and then we're good. Then I do the usual stuff with the flat panel cover, etc. And in there, I have my usual sequencer that will, go to my target, which is currently M51, run the autofocus, start the guiding, and do the exposures with LRGB filters one after another in a loop using filter offset, so I don't need to autofocus between filters. And this isn't something that you can do with something like the ASI Air or the Stella Vita, for instance. So that's why one of the reasons I love N.I.N.A is that everything is ready. I'll be sure, even with the monochrome camera, to always have like my full color image, even after a very short night. And at the sequence end, I can do the opposite, right? I can do the usual stuff, like the telescope will find a home, and I will warm the camera, close the flat panel cover, and I can disconnect the camera specifically, and then afterwards, I can set the switch value for the output port of 12 volts to 0 to turn off the camera completely, so the fan on the Minicam 8 stops spinning. And this is possible because of the switch there and the ASCOM driver for it. So effectively, you're getting the PC and something like a Pegasus Astro power box, but all integrated into one. And for me, once I have that, like this setup is pre-configured, I can use it for any target that I like. It's just a couple of clicks, and then I click play, and I'm done. I don't need to do anything more than that, and it will do everything automatically, including like recentering the target if the target is lost in the middle of the night, meridian flip, all sorts of stuff. That is without question more powerful than something like the ASI Air, but it does require more time to get used to it, and that's just like free software that is pre-installed on this PC. It's not because this is the Gaius S2 that I'm able to use N.I.N.A. It's because it's the Gaius S2 that I can use the switch parameters directly within N.I.N.A, but also within the sequencer of N.I.N.A, which is really, really pleasant. Okay, and also let me quickly show you how it would work to control all of that from smartphone. For that, just like I showed in an earlier video, you need to have installed the plugins called Touch and Stars and Advanced API, as well as 3-point polar alignment in your N.I.N.A installation. And you need to make sure that under the Advanced API, you have the Use Access Control Allow Origin header setup set to on. Once that's done, you can use the smartphone interface either directly via an app for Android only for now, or if you're using iOS, something like Safari browser, you just need to access the URL that is written there, right? So one of these two URLs, access it from your iOS device or from any Windows PC as well, and you'll get basically the same interface. And on my phone, I can set up, the IP address for the Gaius S2, etc. And once I'm done, it will actually connect to the Gaius S2, and we can see directly, like, oh yeah, this equipment is connected. My Minicam 8 is connected, and I can, disconnect, reconnect it, do whatever I want. Same for the switch. You can see it's available as well. And I have access to everything from here. I can do a capture with the camera. I can say like, okay, we're gonna do a capture of 1 second. Let's start a capture. It will run the capture, take the image, and then display it on my smartphone directly once it is ready. And I have it here. I can see what's going on there. And it's just a dark frame because obviously the cover of the telescope is off. And that's the usual stuff with Touch and Stars. Control the mount, control the flat panel, and control. And there is what is interesting, because it's part of the ASCOM driver and the Gaius S2, I'm also able to control my power ports directly from within the Touch and Stars interface. So now that we start having like a real good touch interface for N.I.N.A, then things like the Gaius S2 become really attractive, because they're not only a competitor for the EAGLE6, but they're also becoming a competitor to the ASI Air in terms of both, once it's well set up, ease of use, and also in terms of power, because it's a full Windows install and you can use any equipment that has ASCOM drivers, which is pretty much any Astro equipment, and you can automate everything via the N.I.N.A advanced sequencer, which is absolutely amazing. And then the rest of the app is, as usual, the guider, the sequence control, the flat panel wizard, and also a Stellarium kind of interface. Absolutely amazing what we're able to do. This is not specific to the Gaius S2. It just happens to be a benefit of having it together, with the switch that's integrated within it, with the power outputs controllable. And I actually would recommend that RB Focus actually install the advanced API, 3-point polar alignment, and Touch and Stars modules, like by default on the Gaius S2, and update their manual to basically show how to use Touch and Stars with the Gaius S2, because then you have really this nice smartphone interface that could work out of the box like it does for the ASI Air. So that's why I'm like, this is getting a bit more general, because again, this can work with any Windows PC. You can take a mAAquator 4C, add a Pegasus Astro power box, and you have basically the same thing. But the Gaius S2 is completely integrated, and it works really, really, really well. Couple of things. I do not do planetary imaging, so I don't know how well it works for planetary. And also, it has an integrated fan, but the fan, as far as I could tell, like by lightly touching the computer while it's running, I could not feel any vibrations whatsoever. So I don't think the fan is ever going to be an issue. One drawback that it has right now, which is the LCD screen is pretty bright on the outside. So if you want to remove that, you need to put some electrician's tape on it, or there's actually going to be a firmware update for the Gaius S2 to be able to turn the LCD screen off, which is going to be a welcome update. By the way, we've had terrible weather in Tokyo. Even when there's been a clear night, it's actually been either super strong wind, which made imaging and also reviewing a telescope like the SQA-106 impossible, but at the same time, if there hasn't been wind, it was terrible transparency / very high level clouds. So it's in those conditions that I've been using the Gaius S2. But still, this is the type of image that I took from Tokyo in a light polluted city via the Gaius S2. This was actually a couple of days ago, and I think it's a total of 3 hours of data with the Minicam 8 on M51 Galaxy. But yeah, that is the gist of it for the Gaius S2. If you were considering buying a Windows-based control center for astrophotography, you were likely looking either at the mAAquator 3 or 4 or at the EAGLE6. And if you're looking at the EAGLE6 in particular, I'm here to tell you that while it looks to be excellent, I think the Gaius S2 for the price has it beaten. At least unless you need like more power ports and more USB ports than the Gaius S2 provides, then the EAGLE6 is for you, and it has like ghost modes and all sorts of cool stuff as well. But I think for like 90% of people, the features provided by the Gaius S2 are enough to control your rig. I mean, I still have USB ports open on the Gaius S2 despite using a camera that does not have any integrated USB hub. So overall, I really, really enjoy the Gaius S2, and I will definitely keep using it. It is not moving from that setup. I can guarantee you that, because it's absolutely amazing. I'm actually thinking of either getting and buying my own Gaius S2 for my second rig, or maybe buying something like an SV Boni power box that does not have any ASCOM control for a second rig to pair with my Quieter 4C. But getting a second Gaius S2 is actually on my mind, even though it is, very honestly, it is expensive if you look at the raw specs of the things. Like the CPU is okay, but not great. Definitely not as good as the Quieter 4C. The RAM on the default config is only 4 gigs, and I would never recommend that. So you need to spring for the 566 euro before tax if you're in Europe. So remember that, before tax, 565 euro with 8 gigs of RAM. Honestly, I think it's a bit overpriced, but then I compare to the EAGLE6 and I'm like, okay, no, maybe the price is right. It really depends on the eye of the beholder. And if you want to spring for the top version, 665 euro. Again, it's expensive, but also I can compare to the StellarMate Pro, which is in the same price range. But definitely, if you are considering the EAGLE6, look at the Gaius S2. Now, if you want something that's still like as easy as 1, 2, 3 with, properly integrated smartphone app, etc., then you really still want to go with the ASI Air if you're okay with being locked into a ZW equipment, or if you want to support more equipment and still be as easy as 1, 2, 3, as long as you still have the right equipment, the Toptech Stella Vita. Or if you want full control with still a nice app, but then the learning curve is probably even steeper than N.I.N.A on a Windows PC, there is the StellarMate Pro, which does pretty much everything that the Gaius S2 does, minus using Windows. It uses a Linux-based OS and relies on Indie drivers for controlling all of your equipment. And it relies on ECOS/KStars for the actual guts of the control center system compared to N.I.N.A on a Windows PC. But otherwise, like, if you're looking for a good compromise for a Windows PC, and you want the integrated power ports, etc., the Gaius S2, I think, is the only thing that really checks all of the boxes. The Astro PC Pro is also very good, but it doesn't have everything controllable like the Gaius S2 does. Anyway, with that, let me know what you think of this down in the comments. Is it overpriced? Would you ever consider getting one? Would you still go for the heavier, larger, and more expensive EAGLE6? And if so, why? Or are you an ASI Air diehard and you're gonna keep the ASI Air until someone like grabs it from your cold, unalived hands? Let us know down in the comments while you're going there. Leave a like, it really helps the channel out. As usual, I'll have the links down in the description to the product, but also if you're planning on buying anything from N.I.N.A, High Point Scientific, First Light Optics, even Amazon, if you do so after clicking one of the links down in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. You may want to, if you're going to buy Astro stuff, you may want to do it now while the US stores have it in stock if you're in the US, so to avoid some tariffs. And of course, if you want to support me even more, you can join the channel as a channel member or join my Patreon as a Patreon supporter. The link is down in the description. You guys, you know it. You make all of this channel possible. Thank you so much for your support. But more important than all of that, don't forget whenever you can to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.